The Senate Finance Committee turns its attention to the debate over drug prices today. Bloomberg's chief Washington correspondent Kevin Cirilli joins us from Capitol Hill with a key member of that committee. Kevin.
Thanks, Bonnie. We're here with Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana. Senator, you just left that hearing with Secretary Azar. You've got a piece of legislation that would require hospitals to be a bit more transparent with the issue of drug pricing. Tell me about it.
Well, right now, hospitals in the 340B program do not have to pass on the discount to the patient or the payor. And so they may buy a drug for $1,000. They may buy a drug for $200 and bill it for $1,000. The patient doesn't get the benefit, nor does the patient insurance company. So why not be transparent with it? What are you doing with the money? Are you doing it to otherwise provide more care for the uninsured, or are you using it to acquire a competitor down the street?
It's interesting because when I remember interviewing you just the other week at the White House when President Trump announced his plans to bring down drug pricing, and it's a bit of an issue within the Republican Party, particularly in terms of regulation for pharmaceutical benefit managers and the role of government in regulating them. You've sided with President Trump on this particular issue. But if you're a pharmaceutical benefit manager, do you think that enough Republicans will support the president and yourself to get this type of regulation passed?
If people know the issue, by the way, PBMs are not bad, but the incentives are terrible. If the more you know the issue, the more you realize something has to change. And so, for example, if a pharmacy benefit manager charges more, gets a higher list price, even if they give a big rebate, they make lots more money. The patient, when she is in her catastrophic portion of her Part D benefit, is paying 5% of the list price. So if the list price is $3,000 and the net price after rebate is $500, the patient is paying 5% of $3,000 without any cap.
The senator putting on his doctor cap there for a second. I was just outside of the Supreme Court. We have to switch gears now. 5-4 ruling upholding President Trump's travel ban on predominantly Muslim countries of 5 nations. Meanwhile, Secretary Azar testifying before the Finance Committee about what is going on with the issue of children of immigrants here illegally being separated from their families. He said he'd be able to locate them within seconds. Do you believe him?
Well, he says it's computerized. I can believe they have a database, and I believe the database would say that the child has been assigned to this family in this city in this state. What he also said, though, is once the child is with that family, they no longer have jurisdiction. It is going to be the local and state adoption and foster care boards which now have jurisdiction. So clearly the concern is if that child moves from the original site of placement to another site, would HHS know? And we don't know that. That would be up to the states and the locals.
That has to infuriate you.
Well, Azar made the point over and over again. He is dealing with the rules set up by Congress. So we can be upset about the agency, but we probably should be, in fact, we should absolutely be more upset with the rules within which they have to operate. If they are told that they can only keep a child for 20 days and then have to place them, and if the parent may have a criminal record, the rules are you have to separate, and then after that you have no jurisdiction. I don't think we should blame them. I think we should blame the rules.
All right, well, switching gears even more, the issue of trade, very much a huge issue in your state, Walmart, ExxonMobil in particular. And I understand that you've been hearing from from the steel and commodities industries about how these steel and aluminum tariffs might directly impact the pipes in the energy sector.
Yeah, so my oil and gas developers from upstream to downstream are very concerned about this. And as they point out, oftentimes it's not Chinese steel they're using, which that's the concern, but it's a proprietary steel out of Japan or Germany with a certain alloy that makes it particularly useful to drill down into the ground to look for oil and gas. It cannot be replaced by an American manufacturer because there is no American manufacturer. So I think as we should not paint a broad brush. As we're concerned about Chinese dumping steel, we have to be careful not to include allies who, frankly, we need their product.
There's so much infighting on the administration on policy. Secretary Mnuchin versus Peter Navarro, the senior advisor. Do you think this White House has communicated an end goal with the bilateral talks with China?
No, I think we know their end goal. which is China has a $500 billion trade surplus, and they feel like some of that is due to tilting the field in the direction of China. So I can accept that with China, you're trying to level the playing field and keep them from stealing our intellectual property.
And with regards to Senator Bob Corker, your colleague in the Senate, he said that Congress has to do more to rein in what the president is doing on trade. Do you agree with him?
I think what Corker is really saying is that Congress should take back some of the power it ceded in, I think, 1958 to the executive.
Right.
I agree with that. Under the Constitution, Congress should have a role in this, and a greater role than that which is given to the administrative. I would say that no matter who the president is, because that's what the Constitution says is the right way to be.
And just final question for you, in terms of these trade talks, which are so moving quickly every single day, are you still with the president on this, or what's your message to the White House in terms of as these continuations? We're seeing so much market movement every day off of these ongoing talks, but what's your message to President Trump in terms of as these continue to intensify?
I totally accept that China is a special case which must be considered. China will abuse every rule. On the other hand, don't step on the economic success we are having by creating uncertainty in supply chain so that companies will not make that long-term capital investment that we've seen lately for fear of what will happen with Canada, Mexico, and our European allies.
It's such a fascinating issue where the workers and the C-level executives seemingly have a bit of a disagreement in terms of support and policy, and it's interesting to get your perspective. Senator Cassidy, thank you so much for coming on Bloomberg. We appreciate your time. Bonnie, back to you.